Do you want to shout? I'll repeat the question, yeah.
I had a question to the Minister, but the Minister sadly fled from the So I'll put the question to Rory instead. The Minister said that government policy is to be technology neutral. But there's quite a big assumption in what we've seen of government policy and this conference that the main solution is fixed. But if you turn to Ireland, where many similar challenges have been faced, the government in Ireland put out a tender for to solve the problem of the universal service commitment. And this tender was won by mobile, it was won by Free. So my question is really, would the government and would Cumbria consider a similar type Irish model, recognising that other technologies such as mobile can be the most cost effective for remote and rural communities?
Okay, so just to repeat, for those of you who didn't hear, apologies. It's Mark Falcon from 3, pointing out that in Northern Ireland, the universal service commitment was delivered, Republic of Ireland, through a wireless solution, through a mobile solution, and would we consider doing the same here? The answer, of course, is yes, of course we would. What we're aiming to do is simply get that result. We're aiming to get those speeds. We do have a number of limitations here. As many of you will have noticed who aren't from Cumbria, our mobile phone coverage at the moment is not terrific. We don't have that many masts. But certainly we're very, very open to discussing these kinds of things. And we don't have, I really believe, don't have any commitment to any fixed form of technology. But since this is not really about me, but about the panel, perhaps a question for the panel. Thank you. Yes, a gentleman up at the back, yeah. This is Graham Stewart, who's a Member of Parliament, come to visit us from his own constituency. And in fact, a Carlisle man. His father was a Carlisle doctor, so fantastic thing to have him back in Cumbria. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Rory. We've heard information, we've had evidence that the economic incentives are not there to stimulate the right investment in the right way to maximise what we've got and take us to the next generation. How can those, is that a legislative matter? Is it a cultural matter among companies, the way they're set up? How do we change it so we get the right economic incentives so that we leverage the maximum investment so that we get the next generation standard that we want?
Okay, so this is a great question, which we're going to come on to, I hope, in the rest of the conference. But as Graham points out, of course the economic incentives in Cumbria for a company to invest are not those that would exist in London. I mean, a lot of the costs involved, as all of you in this audience understand, are to do with the civil engineering works, for example, in laying fibre optic cabling. If you're going to pay all that money, if you're going to pay £120 a metre to lay your fibre optic cable, you want as many people at the end of that cable as possible. And of course, in this area where we are very sparsely populated, it is very difficult for a company to make those kinds of returns. The solution, which is being laid out, is of course many different approaches, right? One of them is to cut the costs of installing this. Fiber optic cabling is getting cheaper. We're looking at ways of distributing it, for example, stringing it aerially. We're looking at ways of digging it into the ground more cheaply. We're looking at Wi-Fi hub solutions to try to deliver from a cabinet to people's houses. We're looking at satellite solutions. We're looking at exactly the mobile wireless solution, which was being proposed by Mark Falcon. We're looking at sharing ducts and existing infrastructure. We're looking at models which we hope to use in Cumbria, which we're going to be talking about later today, which we've seen in places like Great Asby, where Miles Mandelson has been working with the community to deliver a community-led solution. Essentially, the economics are such that if we are to get it into the ground here in Cumbria, we need to be very nimble. We need to look at all these different ways of cutting costs. And commercial companies also need to be very imaginative in terms of thinking of how they can work with us. And there will have to be, and this also responds to Graham's question, there will have to be some level of government subsidy, probably to make sure that in the end we can make this work, but hopefully not too large a level of such. Next question, please, yeah.
Tim Snape from Southwest Internet. We've got a very similar rural geotype in the southwest as you have here. The maps that Adrian was kind enough to put up show basically DSL coverage. All the maps that are being produced and used by the government, the analysis Mason reports, again, showing DSL coverage. Everything is being done based upon BT's DSL aging copper network coverage. Yet there are cheaper, lower cost solutions that can and are being deployed, but they don't show on these maps. Bill was quite right. It's all about data. It's all about knowing the data information. The data's there, but it's not being presented and used by government. So the red areas that we saw earlier on for this area, where was Alston? Alston's got fibre. They've got, I mean, guys.
Actually, where was Richard Wallace's project?
Yeah, where were those? They're not even on the maps. I've got the same thing. All my maps where I live are all red. My customers are getting 8 meg, and they're on Exmoor. They have the same geotype as you have here.
Okay, thank you very much. Very good point, and one we will be getting on to after the coffee break. But thank you very much. Okay, let's take 2 or 3 questions in turn, starting at the left and then working down. Yeah.
This is John Farmer. I'm the chairman of the local area partnership, just south of here in Upper Kent. It's 14 very rural constituencies. I would say from the survey work we've done, broadband is actually the most important issue, even above affordable housing and the like. And we are in the process of conducting a survey to find out what people have got and what they are prepared to pay and do. We think that's important. My question, though, is I think our difficulty is as a small rural community determined to do something to get it improved, we have difficulty in knowing what to do and finding sources of information to know how we can drive it forward to the next stage. I hope that will be covered later in this inspirational conference, but I think that's a major issue that these rural communities must find a way of handling.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Yes, please. Yeah, another couple of observations or questions. Yeah.
James Solomon, Waste Management Consulting. I'm about to deliver a project in the Northumberland.
Speak up a little.
He's going to deliver a project in the Northumberland Uplands, and he's going to speak more loudly. Yeah.
Northumberland is an area almost exactly the same size as your constituency, with almost exactly half the population. The problem that we found when we were looking at the project was that the population needs, the people out there, they want reliable broadband at 2 megabits. So that's fine, USC, that's okay. We tend to look at the best way to deliver that. It's very clear that the rollout of NGA, which is soon to come, has a huge impact on the cost and availability of USC. But the demand for NGA is relatively low. So I'm afraid when you actually start to come to do this, what you find is you need to bring everything together. You need to bring how do you work with all the local communities at a council level, not just on that local individual selfish level. How do you bring all that together to generate the demand, to roll out NGA, to then have a spillover effect in USC? And the challenge, I believe, is actually to work out how you do all that. So bringing together the community demand with the network design and the rollout of technology.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I'm very, very aware that we're not really bringing in the panel here. And so I'm going to make an executive decision extended by 3 minutes. And I'm not going to take a question, though, unless it's a question about this panel, which is really about the needs, the gaps. And we're going to move on to solutions next. But if we could hold solution questions or until later. Yes, this gentleman is promising with his hand up to be addressing the panel. Yeah. Yeah.
My name is Lloyd Felton.
Yeah.
I run much the same way that Tim does. We run projects down in East Anglia where we provide NGA solutions very cost effectively, and I'm quite sure it can be done here. This is not an area that we conducted. I'm quite sure that within your audience you have resources that can provide you with that. I'm really interested in it is Richard Watson.
Yeah, Richard.
Really interested in what Richard had to say, particularly about the work that he'd done. And a question I've got for you, Richard, and I think it crosses many things. I think it crosses the Association of Local Councils. I think it crosses the question just asked. And I think
Sorry, I'd say beg pardon, would the network fail?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, let's, Richard, one sec before we bring you in. Let's take a last observation from North Yorkshire Net, and then we'll come. I'm afraid others will have to wait till after the coffee break. North Yorkshire Net.
Thank you, Rory. Daily Cullen from 9 Again, specifically to the panel, I think we've done a very good job of looking at the rural need and what the opportunity can be. I was wondering if between the panel's experience, any of you are aware of statistics regarding to rural risk. In other words, what's happening around social deprivation, what's happening about drain from the rural areas, and what's actually happening therefore about drain to the economy of the rural areas, actually happening now. There's real evidence that as well as an opportunity, we really do have a threat.
Okay, thank you very much. So in very, very quick time, with a real limit, Richard first and then down the panel. Yeah.
I certainly think there are lessons from the way that we did it last time and in the way that we involved community. There are lessons what we did wrong in first generation broadband that we can learn from and do better in the next one.
What do you do an interview with the
And
BBC? This morning.
The key aspect of all of this is there's not one single way of doing it. There's not one single technology that will deliver Cumbria or indeed the UK, and there is not one single approach that's going to work. In certain areas, the community is going to work very, very well. It worked well in 9 areas of Cumbria, but it didn't work particularly well in the rest of Cumbria. And where community does work well, it works extremely well, and it should be promoted and brought into whatever projects that we do much, much more coherently than we did last time. And I think that is a big lesson that we need to learn. I think that stems largely from a little bit of naivety on our part, and also community broadband and community involvement was fairly embryonic at this stage as well. And I certainly know that Daniel and I talk quite openly now about each other's plans, and that those links are a lot stronger than they ever were before. So that is something we